control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. The little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. We the people have taken over. We the people are little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Feel your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. I know you're out there somewhere. This is the new totalitarian state. 1,000 eyes are waiting for you to break. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We've watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised.
Game on!
Game on!
Are you experienced? From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you, listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with those Bigfoot and aliens again?
We're Superman and we're the only ones who can be strong, but we break on command cause women rule the world.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I'm just a fool for you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
The password is...
Alright.
Hey, Mom, put down that pointy stick.
I'm such a lucky guy, cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Captain, prepare for launch.
Lucky guy, cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall. Yeah, the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Space Out Radio. Tonight I am your host Dave Scott, and it's good to have you along for the ride wherever you are on this great planet we like to call Earth. Yes, we are live right here in Uncle Jimbo's cabin, right here in the Great White North on this Thursday night, early Friday morning if you're on the East Coast. We'd love to welcome in everyone taking part at spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, on the United Public Radio Network, Renegade Talk Radio, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and on Revolution Radio, as we do this thing every night of the week, rocking in and out of every show, thanks to our resident guitar god, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Yes, Bumblefoot is the official sound of SOR. If you're a social media junkie like I am, give me a follow on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. How about our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show? Give it a like. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channels, Spaced Out Radio Show. Find us on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. If you want to take part in this show, because we don't take phone callers, at least not yet, you'll have to sign into one of our chat rooms, though. You can go to Revolution Radio. You can go on Spreaker, on the UPRN chat room, and on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter, just go to hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I will get to your questions and comments in there as well. If you haven't gone to our website and signed up for the SOR Space Travelers Club yet, you know what? It's time. $5 a month, that's it. No more, no less. Your name gets entered into monthly prize draws. You get a special section for your postings on our website and much more. We want to give back to you, our valued listener. And, of course, you go to our website, you can read up on my latest blog, check out Eric Markham's SOR Spacewire for your latest and weird news, and if you've had a sighting you can't explain, that's why we have Mike Schmidt hanging around. He is the head of the SOR Sightlines Report, ready to investigate your claims. We want to thank everyone listening in on Revolution Radio. The Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. And don't forget to pick up their package of seeds. It helps the donation keep the station going. It's only $50 for the package. You can line up your garden getting ready for this spring. We want to thank everyone listening in on the United Public Radio Network, live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. And if you're in Sin City, you can tune in to Renegade Talk Radio. Yes, we are live in Las Vegas as well. Berenstein Bears or Berenstain Bears? How many people were in the limo the day JFK was assassinated in Dealey Plaza? Life is a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Is that misquoted? Or how about this one? Captain Crunch cereal. Is it Captain spelled C-A-P-T-A-I-N or C-A-P-T''N? And yes, many believe there's been a warp in our timeline that has taken everyday occurrences and turned them upside down. It's called the Mandela Effect, after Nelson Mandela, the former president of South Africa, who was in jail for 27 years just for being black. Am I the only one who remembers the news report in the 80s saying that he had died? Yet, on this timeline, he's very much alive. Well, he's passed away now. These strange happenings have people wondering what it's all about. Has mainstream media and advertising really clouded our heads that much? Or is it all our imagination? Of course, the scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz was actually carrying a gun in the witch's castle, right? I don't recall it either. Tonight, clinical hypnotherapist Laurie McDonald is taking on the Mandela Effect. Laurie's True You Hypnotherapy is a clinic based out of Sacramento. Usually she's dealing from everything between quitting smoking and alcohol to alien abductions. But now we add the Mandela Effect to her resume. Laurie, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio for your second time. So good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here tonight.
You know what? I'm very glad that you are jumping in to this pool because the Mandela Effect has really caught on. It's like the late 2015, 2016, and into 2017 version of what demonology is to the paranormal, because everything's a demon now. Why did you decide to go down this road? What was the start of it? Because I know you're more used to dealing with addictions, you're more used to dealing with feelings and helping people out, especially those in this field when it comes to ufology and alien abduction and contact. What made you take down the Mandela Effect as well?
I saw people actually becoming traumatized when they were confronted with something that they full-heartedly believed to be true, could prove it to be true, and then they go and find that what they thought was true is not, or at least not in this timeline.
So when you started getting these reports, what was going through your mind at that time? Because a lot of people don't believe that this is truly happening. A lot of people feel that it's just people's minds. We hear things over and over again that it clouds our minds.
No, people do misremember things. Absolutely. And a lot of the Mandela effects that you might see on YouTube or something like that are not Mandela effects. They are mistakes or honest mistakes, but they are misremembering or conflagration where they believe it to be true. They really do, but it isn't. But the Mandela effect, it's not whether it's true or not true. It's more like both timelines actually exist. And the question really is, how can that be? So I was recently speaking to a lady that runs a boutique in my neighborhood, and she just, had an answer for everything. Oh, it's logo change. It's a different version. It's, natural for things to change. But I guess she didn't realize the depth or level of research that I'm accustomed to doing, especially when it comes to the paranormal or the abduction or contact phenomena. So it didn't matter which example I gave her until there was one that truly resonated with her, and that was the Star Wars iconic line, "Luke, I am your father." So now in the movie, it plays, "No, I am your father." So I said, "So listen, just go home." And she goes, "Oh, well, they make, new DVDs." I said, "No, go home, play your version. I'll drop by the boutique tomorrow and you tell me if it's changed." The second I walked through the door, her arms were in the air. She came scurrying across the floor. Her eyes were wide, and she said, "How did the DVD in my possession change? And how come he doesn't say, 'Luke, I am your father'?" She just had a difficult time wrapping her mind around it. And so, what is the answer?
So what led you down this path, though? Was it just all these coincidences? Was it the examples that people were having? Because there's more to just the Berenstain Bears. There's more than just, they like me, they really like me speech. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, there's a lot more to that. I mean, and one of the main things is because Sally Field, or Sally Field's brother, Rick Field, is the main quantum particle physicist at CERN, whose very intent was to create a black hole which could possibly create a tear between two dimensions or a parallel universe. So Sally Field, she's really keeps showing up in this. Now, it isn't just her acceptance speech. Sally Field played the mother of Forrest Gump, the other iconic movie line, life is like a box of chocolates, now changing to the more negative, was like a box of chocolates. Now, what? It's not like that anymore. What a bummer. So Sally Field, it's not just her name spelling. She has 2 or 3 or 4 degrees of the Mandela Effect. Her brother being one of the lead scientists there really makes it quite interesting to me, because on our list of suspects as how this might be happening, we would have to take into account things like CERN and the particle collider would be a suspect, perhaps a PSYOPs through the CIA, the U.S. government, maybe the cabal, or the consortium, that bottomless money pit of think tank groups who come up with everything you can possibly think of to understand the psychology of humanity, not for the best of reasons either. So when we look at something like, how can this happen? The truth is, if we look at things like quantum entanglement, and we see that in this reality, at this time, CERN has the D-wave quantum computing. In a parallel universe, we would have to assume that there is a second quantum computer, D-wave, and that the possibility of them being able to communicate would be quite high. And now we're looking at actual artificial intelligence. And there is artificial intelligence, a couple of them by the name of Alice. They're acronyms. There's 3, in fact, I came up in my research. The first was Artificial Linguistic Internet Computer Entity, Artificial Intelligence. Now, the second Alice was U.S. government, Department of Defense, Automated Logistic Integrated Computer Extracts. And the third, of course, was CERN, which was a Large Ion Collider Experiment. So hence the D-wave. So possibly this artificial intelligence could be hacking the human consciousness through ELF waves or using a sound frequency. And I'm even looking at the possibility of what some people refer to as a type of technical magic, black mirror magic, anything having to do with a monitor, your cell phone, tablet, laptop, or desktop, even television, that specific sound frequencies and specific light waves can be projected into the mind of a person. So now we're looking more at some type of possible psychotronic mind control where beamed energy is being sent through these devices. All very plausible, possible. And so right now, when we see the existence of actual two realities, it's not important to me to say, oh, it's this, it's that. Let's just assume for a moment it's both and try to prove that, which is kind of the approach that I took. And then I found myself in the United States Patent Office of Full Image and Data Text database, where I was able to go through registered patents and trademarks and come up with the patent numbers for things like Captain Crunch, spelled the way we do in this timeline with the appropriate way, CAPTAN, and product Febreze, which was a product made to be used as an air freshener originally, and it had in the commercials on TV something pinned to the clothesline in the ocean breeze, and hence the name Febreze. Now on the I found evidence of it spelled that way through a Procter & Gamble patent. And now, though, history tells us that it was always been Febreze, Febreze, or Z-E. So,
yes, thank you for clarifying the Z. I appreciate that.
Not a problem. Yeah, it's very difficult for me to say Z. I have to think that way now.
Well, let's not forget, us Canadians, we do have to stick together no matter which border we're living on.
Yeah, and it's great that I can say it without having to explain it. It's wonderful. Yes, so the Mandela Effect definitely has got a lot of people thinking, I see a huge part of the population just can't wrap their mind around it, and they're going to extremes to debunk it. So don't think I didn't try to debunk it as well. I'm just saying that we are seeing evidence of both timelines. My DVD of Forrest Gump on the back says, life is like a box of chocolates, but when I play it now, it says, life was like a box of chocolates. And same with the DVD that I owned, which was an interview with a vampire, miraculously changed. What wizardry is this to interview with the vampire? Now, so for me, I know what I know and don't feel the need to think, oh, I'm misremembering. And I know a lot of people go, I'm just misremembering and slough it off and carry on with their day. I am not that type of person. If I know it, I know it. If I don't, I don't. In a lot of the Mandela effects, I'm like, I'm just not quite sure. But the Berenstain Bears, I know it to be that way because I read the books to my son. And my question really when I read them was, is it Berenstein or Berenstein? Berenstain wasn't even an option. So it's very interesting when we begin to look at them. It's when they have a personal effect. The TV show Sex in the City. I've been able to find David Letterman hosting the Emmy Awards where Sarah Jessica Parker won for Sex in the City, where it's now Sex and the City. And I remember when it changed, and I remember seeing the movie, and I thought, I wonder if for some reason they had to change it for the movie. But apparently that was the shift.
Very interesting indeed. Before we go any deeper into this, let's explain to our audience, if you don't mind, what the Mandela Effect actually is.
Well, it's a distinct belief of two histories where Fiona Bruin actually came up with it. She is a paranormal researcher, and she had said, hey, back when Nelson Mandela died in the 80s, and half of her audience was like, what? He's not quite dead yet. And the other half were like, sure, he died in the 80s. Now, I'm in he died because I understood apartheid. I saw what was happening, and I watched standing up in my living room, passionate speech from the new widow. And I thought, wow, I can't believe he died in prison. I couldn't believe it. And so I was amazed in 2013 when former President Obama did an inappropriate selfie at Nelson Mandela's funeral because he had already died. Now, there is a school history book in South Africa published as saying that Nelson Mandela died in 1991. I believe that it was in the 80s, but that's my belief. And I'm not going to testify that, I know the date, but I do remember that he died. And so that really threw me in. So hence the Mandela Effect, where there are two timelines where people have two distinct memories, things like the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the mirror, mirror on the wall. History now says that was never said by the evil stepmother to the fair Snow White, that in fact she said, magic mirror on the wall. What? Magic mirror on the wall. So I actually asked my granddaughter, just really casually, well, we were very relaxed and we were outside going for a walk, and I said, honey, do you know the story Snow White? She said, yeah. I said, well, what did the evil queen say? She said, magic mirror on the wall. I said, oh, okay. I said, really? That's what she said? And then she looked at me, gave me the strangest look, and shook her head and said, no. It's mirror, mirror on the wall. And I said, oh, that's how I remember it too. But the way that she looked at me, I got to tell you, Dave, it's like she was under a little hypnosis because I've seen it. And she literally shook it out when I pushed, and she's not invested, hadn't heard of the Mandela Effect. I certainly didn't, create it or present it in a way that was a test, or this was just a very natural, casual, and I was, taking mental notes at her mental and physical reaction to, no, it's not. And like literally shaking it out of her mind as she protested, no, it's not that at all. And she didn't know why she said it.
It's one of these things that is getting a lot of harsh criticism from a lot of people out there, Laurie. There's a lot of people who are saying, our minds have been clouded, as I said in the intro. The minds have been clouded by the media, by advertisement, by people misquoting. I mean, this goes back for decades when people would misquote songs. I mean, who the hell could really understand what Bob Dylan or Tom Petty were singing back in the day?
Oh, wait, I totally can understand Tom, but I got you with Bob.
Exactly. But the whole point being is, everybody has their own translation for what they hear. So why are so many people trying to put it towards the Mandela Effect rather than their own mind failing them on, say, song lyrics or box covers? Here's
the difference, okay? Sure, people are going to misremember the words in a song, most likely they're not misremembering. Odds are they've been singing wrong for 40 years, okay? That's most likely. Secondly, it's not natural for millions of people to misremember exactly the same way. That is not how a mismemory works. A mismemory is personal, based on your own experience. It's not shared by the masses. So we can look at things like logo changing and stuff like that. But then there are a deeper aspect of the Mandela effect that admittedly I haven't researched extensively yet because I really feel I need additional help to do so. And these are the people who are claiming changes in the human anatomy and geography. They're saying, look at the shape of Florida off of the United States. It's pointing more down than it used to. It used to point out kind of like at between 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And now it's closer between 5 and 6. And so people are saying, check your Google Maps. This isn't how I remember it. There's bigger ones with very smart people, astrophysicists, saying that they recall us, planet Earth. Where are you in the universe? We are in the Sagittarius arm of the Milky Way. And that is what I remember as well. But imagine the astonishment to hear that we are now in the Orion arm, which is really just a spur. It's more like the Orion spur of the Milky Way, and extremely difficult for us to have moved that way. So how is that possible? So if that is possible or isn't possible, we might have to push it a little further and think, can our consciousness just have shifted? And our perspective now is from this other parallel timeline, and that maybe this is happening. So I'm not invested in proving it or disproving it. All I'm saying is that certainly people are being affected. Something is happening. There are millions of people do remember Star Wars. They remember things like C-3PO having 2 golden legs, not 1/2 silver. And the action figures they played with, and so on and so forth. Now, C-3PO has always had this sort of half from the knee down, a silver leg. These are changes that the movie makers aren't taking credit for. How are we to explain them? This isn't misremembering. I remember very clearly the action figures that my son played with, just as well as I remember him running around with his hands cupped over his nose and mouth saying, "Luke, I am your father," as he played Darth Vader. So many children did that. There's the multiple parodies. Not all of these are misremembering and wrong, just like what is the Tom Cruise movie where he sings the Bob Seger. Is it? Well, no, with Bob, where he sings the Bob Seger song, comes out sliding with the Ray-Ban sunglasses on.
Risky Business.
Yeah, right. He's doing old-time rock and roll. So the scene was, he comes sliding out singing this, and now that he's not wearing sunglasses. I mean, he put Ray-Bans on the map, okay? But now in the movie, when you play it, he doesn't have these sunglasses on. So how is that happening? These aren't digital effects. These aren't remastered. This isn't a new DVD. This is a DVD or a VHS that somebody has had in their possession for years and years. So I don't know if you yourself have any of those movies, Dave.
You know what? I don't collect a lot of movies. I can honestly say that. And I'll tell you why. When I was a teenager, my parents ruled me with an iron fist because my 2 older sisters, who were 7 and 10 years older than me, ran wild. And so my dad was like, yeah, that shit ain't happening with old Davy here, or young Davy at that time. So every night or every weekend was literally movie night at my house. And I got so sick of movies by the time I realized and developed a social life that I don't even watch movies anymore. I don't even watch TV anymore. It's just, it's one of those phobias that I have.
Well, that's probably a very good thing. But it makes it difficult with the Mandela effect.
Oh, absolutely, it makes it difficult. But in regards to people's memories, people can forget things. People can, like I said, create these unorthodox memories or alternate memories that are eerily consistent with everything that is going on. And that's probably why a lot of us don't think it's a conspiracy that anything is truly happening. But let's just say it is. Let's just say it happened. When do you believe this actually started?
It's very difficult, but I think around 2012, that's what a lot of people seem to feel it was in that area where we started to begin to see really big, significant changes and some not so significant. Some of the Bible verses really upset a lot of Christians. And so I checked with some very well-known TV evangelists who are quite familiar with the scripture. And, they are just obviously screaming end times because demons, because their Bibles have changed also, and particularly the King James Version. So lots of things have changed in there. Of course, people saying the lion and the lamb verse. Now it's the wolf and the lamb, when the wolf and the lamb lie together. So there's a lot of things that got people really upset. Of course, the Lord's Prayer, where it now says, when you read the Bible itself, not looking it up online, you reading the actual Bible, it says in earth instead of on earth as it is in heaven, in earth, simulating, or as if this is a simulation. It certainly makes one think, is that what they're saying? Because aren't we on Earth? So there are those types of changes. And then when you look at how CERN did their opening ceremonies for the tunnel, they were very strange. And then the videos that they started to make afterwards, the one scientist holding a sign that said Bond, number one, and then the other sign in his hand said Mandela. So the first James Bond was Nelson. So it's very strange, all of these things. Why would CERN allow their scientists to make such videos? Have you seen the opening ceremonies?
Opening ceremonies to what?
To the tunnel that CERN created with Switzerland.
No, I have not.
Okay, they truly are straight up satanic. They are unbelievably demonic. They actually have a demon rising up with horns, marrying all of these brides. They show I believe it's the Goddard Tunnel. It's just, Google that and check it out. Watch the actual footage, and you will not believe the horned beast that comes out, and they turn the people into zombies. And this is their actual opening ceremonies. Good money was spent on this. People were just shaking their heads, saying, "What is this?" But that's actually what it was. And so we're really looking at a lot of strange events happening. And the arrow keeps pointing back at CERN. So, are there parallel universes? Math will indicate that there most likely are. Do we have a D-wave quantum computer? Yes, indeed we do. Are there such things as artificial intelligence? Yes, they are. There are. So what is it that we know about time? Very little. We don't really understand, and I think that it's an opportunity for people not to really take sides, but to really just allow this phenomena to push their minds into a way of thinking, push them into some type of education, understanding the photoelectric universe that we live in, get them to understand some of the things that are happening, like forced magnetic discharges or reflectance, or what particle waves are. These are things that are our environment, and we have very little understanding of them, yet people are very quick to dismiss, oh, you must have a bad memory. Again, I am not saying my memory is 100%, but the things that I do remember, I am quite sure about. Things like Looney Tunes. When I watched cartoons and watched Looney Tunes with my children on Saturday mornings, it really was TOONS. It wasn't until the 90s that they started creating the iTunes, and people started, it began to change. That's where it looks like it changed in the 90s. That's as far back. But they say that it never was TOONS. Yet, when you do your research, you'll remember that they made a Tiny Toons, and that were the same cartoon characters, but they're younger little friends, and they were for younger children, a younger audience. Yeah, and Tiny Toons is spelled TOONS. For some reason, that hasn't changed. So what is a person really to think? I mean, I can see why they would rather just say, oh, I'm misremembering, instead of going out and having to understand sound frequency and seeing if it's possible that some type of psyops could be happening to a particular percentage of the population. That's a possibility. We know it wouldn't be the first time something like that's happened. And then if we remember back about a year ago, there was this huge controversy online. It went viral. Then it was all over the networks, and it was about a dress. Is it blue and black, or is it gold and white? And people saw it two different ways. People were registering it two different ways. And I think it turned out that 25% of the population had an additional cone in the eye that was allowing additional light in, which allowed them to actually see the truer color. So I'm wondering if that wasn't some type of a test. Some ridiculousness of the color of a dress just doesn't go viral for nothing. As well as the Pokemon Go. Right from the get-go, my instincts told me that this is some type of a strange test to see how they could get people so mixed up in between what's reality and what's not reality by, inserting these images, overlapping them into our reality. And the way things are going, it's going to be very difficult to differentiate between what's real and what's not. We're able to simulate reality so accurately that it's very difficult to tell if it's animated or real, and throw in holographic technology. And you can see that there's a lot going on the planet that if you're just mainstream going to work 9 to 5 and then watching TV till you fall asleep, you're really missing out on a lot of stuff that's happening. So we don't really know or can't say, but I think that a lot of people are saying that it's most likely, consciousness related. It's affecting our consciousness.
I want to get to a couple questions here, and I think this is a great one from Loretta in the Space Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. And she is asking, Laurie, do you think that all of this may have happened before, but without the internet connections that people have now relied upon, it's been forgotten?
I do, actually. There's a lot of ancient myth and lore that speak of when things change. I believe in the last book of the Bible, Revelations, it says, watch, because know things in your heart and mind, because you won't be able to trust the words that you read on paper because they will change. So, yeah, I think that maybe really there is some type of a ripple in time space, and this is my concern, that these are parallel universes, parallel dimensions, and the ascension process for the human soul, for personal growth and development and unfolding, is rising up, moving into fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh dimensional consciousness thinking, to a higher way of being, not being pulled back into this a third dimensional time loop, which is what could happen, which I think is what Loretta is kind of saying. Did this happen before? Yeah, I think it could have happened before. Maybe the computer is self-correcting.
How much play do you think this is actually brought on by the internet then?
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, because when people get going, I mean, let's face it, we love drama. We love, taking that story from the truth. And by the time you tell 30 people, you go from the cat was brown to the shark ate the goldfish. You know what I'm saying? The story changes each time.
Yeah, but these things are in books or on tape or are recorded somehow. Like I said, some of the information that I'm finding in the U.S. Patent Office database is showing that these things existed in this name, or without a logo change or the evolution in rebranding, that they actually physically have changed. So there's no amount of play on the internet can change that. I mean, of course, there are people out there going, I remember Shasta Cola had an I in it. Yeah, well, no. I don't think that there's millions of people remembering it that way. I think people will most likely remember it was named after Mount Shasta. So there's like that amount of insignificant, people, not insignificant people, let me correct myself, insignificant incidents that people are sharing that don't have anything at all to do with the larger, more solid Mandela effects, things that millions of people have the exact same memory. That's what makes it different, is the numbers, because it's not natural for people to have the exact same mismemory. But there's things like maps, like I said, the anatomy of the human body, where the heart and kidneys are now, people are saying they have changed. Not a medical doctor. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't really been able to do a lot of research into that aspect of it yet. But they're saying that the kidneys are way up high under the breasts. And I remember them kind of being in the back fatty area, love handles on the back, lower left and right of the body. And so could I be remembering wrong? I don't know.
Let's get to another question here, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And I'm having a little bit of computer troubles tonight with Facebook, so I do want to apologize to our fans who are listening in the SOR Space Travelers Club. This one comes from Gail, and she is asking, Laurie, so did all of the evidence of the way things were before then change too?
Actually, some of it has. Some of it is changing, but this is the strangest thing. Some of the things are changing back. and that is even harder to understand. So, yeah, the evidence is some of it has changed. disappeared.
Oh, great. Let's get to a question from Loretta again. She is asking or saying, I find it comforting that my grown kids remember these things the way I do. Is there a significance in certain groups staying together?
Well, I'm not sure about groups staying together, but what I am seeing is the people that are affected by the Mandela effect are people who are a little bit more awake, aware, a little bit more interested in, say, the extraterrestrial phenomena. They're certainly more interested in the paranormal. They have more of an understanding of their personal growth. They're on their own path. And so I think that's so far the main commonality that I've been able to determine about the people who do really feel they are affected by the Mandela effect.
Spear is asking, suppose the Mandela effect is linked to the holographic world theory. The program has gotten a virus or things are being reprogrammed by stronger perceptions. What is your opinion on that?
Well, if this were a simulated world, and the only way we would be able to tell if it were a simulation is if there were a glitch in the program, and have what we are experiencing most definitely could be considered a glitch. And yes, the computer could be trying to self-correct. Now, another aspect of technology making the change is, in fact, the extraterrestrial archons who use technology. They are the parasitic entity that's highly technical. They like to attach. And so it could be possible that they're creating or manipulating our reality through, and we're experiencing it as the Mandela effect. But again, now we're looking at artificial intelligence and simulated holographic realities.
So do you buy all of this? Are you a true believer that there is something happening? Or do you think that there's maybe so much coincidence that there could be possibilities to this theory?
I found a shopping list of mine. I had a condo in San Diego just off the beach, and it every now and then it would get that beachy smell. And so on my list, I had the product Febreze to pick up, and I had spelled it Febreeze. And now, if I were to go buy that product or look up the product by Procter & Gamble, you will see that it is missing one of those E's, and history shows that it has always been that way. I do remember it the other way. I didn't misspell it on my shopping list. I remember looking at it in my linen closet as I pulled it out one day and went, what is it? Did I accidentally buy a cheap knockoff? That's exactly what I thought. And I thought, see, I'm not one to go, oh, I'm misremembering, because I don't misremember like that. I'm pretty clear about a lot of things. That happens to be one of them. So for sure, as far as believing, let's just say I've experienced it. Do I believe my experiences are real? By all means, I do. I remember eating Captain Crunch. I absolutely craved it like a wild animal when I was pregnant, and really couldn't get enough of it. As it turned out, I was suffering from low blood sugar, and that was why I was having that craving. But I ate boxes of it, and I remember reading the boxes. I'd be eating it in the middle of the night. So it was comforting to me, actually, to find that it was registered with that spelling, even though people are saying, well, I found a cartoon from the 1960s, one of their cartoon commercials, and it was Cap'n. It was always been Cap'n Crunch. It was never Captain Crunch. So, reality is unique, and it's our own perspective. We've lots of people sharing this. So is this a true reality? If it's a true reality, then I guess that makes it real. And as far as believing goes, well, just say I'm extraordinarily open-minded to continuously understanding, experimenting with it, investigating, researching, and seeing what I can come up with.
This reminds me of the whole Back to the Future scene where Doc is telling Marty McFly about the space-time continuum and that Marty wanted to bet on sports in the future, or grab the sports almanac, bring it back in time so that way he could make a few bucks on the side. And Doc was absolutely against it because it would change the space-time continuum, as I just said. Do you think that maybe somebody went and affected something in the future and then came back, like a whole time travel type thing?
Well, the butterfly effect is, what we're talking about here. And, that's certainly a possibility. And time travel, yes, I mean, is possible. It does seem possible because really all time happens simultaneously. So it's really a matter of being able to focus your consciousness into that reality. Then your perspective is clearly there. Therefore, that makes you in that timeline. If you can move your consciousness, you can't move in time. All time happens simultaneously. All you can do is change your perspective and move your consciousness. You can move your consciousness to different aspects of time, but I don't believe that you can time travel.
Because when I look at it, the Mandela Effect, I see the similarities to what is in Back to the Future. And I'm not trying to make fun of the situation or try and bring it down to a comedic type level. But it just seems that there is so many similarities between the two. That's why I bring it up.
Well, I think people actually are referring to those similarities as clues as to what's happening now. Mm-hmm. And they're saying that movie comes up a lot, Dave. It's talked about a lot in the different Mandela Effect Facebook pages and so on and so forth, and YouTube and all the other areas. I mean, it's a relatively new phenomena. I mean, it is different, but there are some things that really leave people scratching their heads. And one of them was there were many people who believed that west of Australia there was a small island. It's actually in the exact place where the Malaysian aircraft supposedly was last seen or heard from. That's where a lot of the search parties went, and that's where they started. There are all kinds of movie clips and old TV shows. And I got to tell you, just for some random reason, I turned on the TV and turned on an old Andy Griffith show, and I watched it for about 10 minutes. It seemed like I should be watching it. And sure enough, they walk into the bedroom and there's a globe. And so I hit pause, and west of Australia is this island. And I remember when I was in the 4th grade at Gilmore Elementary School in Windsor, we had this exchange teacher come from England, and she had told us that she had visited this island. And I remember her showing it to us on the classroom map. Mm-hmm. So now that island isn't there. There are people who are saying there are some major geographical changes. One is the size of Greenland. And check these things through the Google satellite imaging and compare them to what you know. And there are some big changes, and I can't even fathom how, other than, again, our consciousness is, our alpha consciousness for some people who are very affected by the Mandela effect maybe have come from the other parallel. Maybe they're here to wake up the other people, make them realize that not only are you not limited to this particular universe, that in fact your consciousness can transcend both time and space, and that the human itself is much larger than all of this. This is in fact what I think it's going to point to. All roads do lead to consciousness. This is about a consciousness expansion. It's about pushing the reality that we think we live in, and then understanding what we can do with the human consciousness. Time travel, not so much forward and backward, but if you look at it as time from the past and the future is already coexisting simultaneously, say in a ball, and that your consciousness has the ability to move or slow at any area, and your perspective then will be from that area, no matter what the time on the calendar says. So it's consciousness.
So do you think that the whole Mandela effect, and we only got about 2 minutes here before we go to break, do you believe the whole Mandela effect is built into the consciousness of people rather than being an actual, what's the word I'm looking for? Of course, my tongue gets tied at this time. Being an actual event happening?
Well, it could very well just be the consciousness of people. And I would imagine that the Department of Defense or CERN or any other government agency would very much like to take credit for having the ability to create such a psyop, such magnitude in any psyop. So maybe they'd like to take it. So when you start to research it that way, we're going to get a lot of information on beamed energy, alpha waves, and Gwen waves, and of course, MK Ultra mind control.
All right, we're going to get you to hold on for a couple of minutes here, Laurie, because we are going to hop out for our first break of the night. We are talking the Mandela Effect. Laurie McDonald is our guest. She is a clinical hypnotherapist from Sacramento, California, via Windsor, Ontario, Canada, so she's still waving the maple leaf. You know, we kind of like that around these parts of British Columbia. But that's all good, because if you need to find her site, True You Hypnotherapy, just Google it. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this break.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at
all right, we have
For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, News Director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Greetings, space travelers. I am Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange Radio. live every Sunday evening, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. Each week we have special guests and talk about paranormal, bizarre, and strange topics mainstream just won't touch. Look for us on the Spaced Out Radio website or go to beyondthestrange.com for more information. And remember, don't be a stranger, just be strange. Hasta.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Hi there. This is your medium Joanna from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
The sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest. From Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us wherever you are on this great planet. Tomorrow night on the show, J.C. Johnson is going to join us. We're talking everything cryptid. Yes, J.C. is known as the Indiana Jones of the crypto world. He'll be with us 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time for the full 3 hours tomorrow night at spacedoutradio.com. Hey, we want to thank everyone listening in on the United Public Radio Network live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. If you're listening in on Renegade Talk Radio down in Las Vegas, it's good to have Sin City listening in live. Thank you very much. And of course, if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. We're just waiting for a password here. My Facebook isn't acting very nice here tonight, so I gotta wait for Bill. Okay, there it is. Oh my gosh. Tonight's SOR Space Travelers Club password is Angostero Straight. Angostero Straight. What it means, I don't think very many people know or could use it in a sentence, but Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Hey, if you want to follow us on social media, you could do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Also use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to get a question or a comment into me. It's live right in front of me. Follow us on Twitter or make that on Facebook. Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Tune us in on TuneIn, download this show and others on iTunes, and of course our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, we have a plethora of features for you to check out, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for only $5 a month. Check it out today. Tonight we are talking the Mandela Effect. Clinical hypnotherapist Laurie McDonald is with us down in Sacramento, California. True You Hypnotherapy is her clinic. Check it out. She is a brilliant, brilliant lady. Laurie, welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, during the show, I monitor 4 different chat rooms along with Twitter. I'm a busy bee and listening to you at the same time. A lot of people think I actually have people here with me giving me a hand, but no, it's just dear old Dave right here in Uncle Jimbo's cabin making this happen. And I gotta say, the audience is really split on this one. The chat rooms are totally into what the Mandela Effect is all about, but on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, they're not buying it. They're not buying it 1 ounce. So the reason why I bring that up is because I think it's important to see the way society is really deviated on this topic.
You know, the only way a person is going to really begin to investigate it further is when they are actually affected by it. So for the people out there on Twitter, if you remember the iconic line in Field of Dreams being build it and they will come, or was it build it and he will come? If you have a clear memory and you own the movie, play it. If it's changed, then you're experiencing the Mandela Effect. Now, millions of people say, oh, no, it was build it and they will come because it was a whole team. And then all the cars came. There's this huge, long procession of headlights. It wasn't build it and he will come, one person, one vehicle. You know, so a lot of the Mandela effects that have changed are illogical and they don't make sense to people. And so it's a little bit bigger than just a mismemory. I mean, some of the things are straight up idiotic, in particularly the spelling of things, such as a box of cereal like Fruit Loops. You know, I'm not sure, but I do recall it being spelt Fruit. Now, apparently that was never the case. So it's really only when it affects you personally. Now, other people have had their own personal MEs where, you know, it's a friend has passed away. They're moved. They've gone to the funeral. And then 4 or 5 years later, they run into the person. Now, this isn't something somebody's making up. This is something that's sending somebody in for therapy. You know, people are really being affected by that, where they're noticing the changes. And they're not noticing just 1 or 2 once they begin looking into it and really doing their homework and investigating it. And I don't mean Googling something. I'm talking about go get a NordVPN, move into the deep net, check out the 500 other search engines, go through the thousands and thousands of pages of information and find it. You know, with the Oscar Mayer Wiener one, I ended up finding old newspaper circulars, and I was looking for like July 1st and July 2nd when they would have had, when it would have been logical for me to assume that they would have put hot dogs on sale for the 4th of July here in the United States of America. And in fact, I found IGA, Piggly Wiggly, and several other grocery stores who did spell it Oscar Mayer, Meyer. They're Baloney had a first name. And so people do recall this now that it's Oscar Mayer, Mayer, like John Mayer. It just doesn't make sense to people. Then there are other people who will swear to it. Like I said before, I'm believing that both groups of people are accurate, that both timeline A and timeline B can exist. And it's where our consciousness is focused, that's where we're having the ability to have recollection or memory from. It's not right or wrong. It's just a very strange phenomena.
So why do you think this topic works so many people up? Whether it's for the believing it or for the people who say, come on, give your heads a shake. This isn't happening.
That's a great question, Dave, because the fact is, this Mandela Effect can't change a reality. It can only change the documentation of reality. For instance, Kennedy was still assassinated, whether there were 4 or 6 people in the vehicle. That one split right down the middle. Many people believe 4, many people believe 6. I happen to believe it was 4. I know that the FBI created a film to document the incident. They recreated the incident as close as possible, and they had 4 people in the car. So when we now see footage that shows 6, you can slow it down. I believe it's frame 277 through frame 279, where a side window appears and then disappears within these several frames. So one has to question, is this when the film was doctored to make it look like 6 people were there? So it's very difficult, but then there are all other evidence being shown that shows that there were 6 people in the car. How many do you remember, Dave?
Originally, I thought it was 4, but now that I've seen it again, it's 6.
Yeah. No, now that car is on display in a museum. And there are Wax, Jackie, and Kennedy, and right down to her Chanel suit. And I know that this car could have jack seats that could fold out into the back so they could add the additional passengers, but this wasn't the case. It's not how the car was portrayed. There were 4 people, Conley being the 4th in the front seat with the driver. So, it's funny that you would say you thought it was 4, but then you see that it was 6. Whereas if you thought it was 4, you thought that for a reason. Pretty big thing in history to forget. I mean, his head, he was shot in the head. She apparently scrambled over the back. But this evidence now where they're showing the 6 people in the car, very strange footage. They're actually implying now that Jackie may have had a gun and fired one of the shots. They show her kind of trying to slip it behind the seat. This is only in the footage of the 6 people theory. Again, though, what's important here is that the reality hasn't changed. The history of the fact that Kennedy was assassinated, it's just documented different. But I got to tell you, I think some of this documentation is sloppy at best, because there are residual things where we can see, such as these museums that only portray 4. They're not going to make a mistake like that. 6 grocery stores in 5 different cities advertised Oscar. I could have got more, but that's where I stopped. Advertised Oscar Mayer cigarette or Oscar Mayer hot dogs. I've been into the archives of so many newspapers. It's ridiculous. Looking for ads. My papa worked at the Ford Motor Company in Windsor. So that little extra pigtail on the F blew me away. Yeah, I'd never seen anything like that. But yet Ford said it was always like that. So there are significant things that, for me, there's just absolutely no opportunity in my mind to consider that I'm misremembering. And then, just to be fair here, like I said earlier, there are all kinds that I just absolutely don't know because I don't know. But the ones where I'm adamant about, I'm pretty confident in my memory.
Let's get to a couple questions here from our audience. This one comes from Loretta. She is saying, I don't rule out time travel, but if it was time travel, wouldn't it have changed for everyone with no remnants of an alternative? I side with the parallel universes, she says.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I side with the parallel universes over time travel for sure, because like I said, there is no time. Time, past, present, and future exists simultaneously. It's where the conscious mind is focused. Time is an illusion. It's something we're measuring in linear thoughts. You can't measure something that's circular with a linear tool. So it's irrelevant time travel, I think. I would go more into the parallel universe theories.
This question comes from Gail. How can one track these changes when it seems so random?
Ah, very good question. Yes, it is seemingly random, isn't it? I like to create categories. And so I started creating categories of these Mandela effects, people's names, books, iconic lines, products, trying to see how they changed and where the significance was in it. So, and some of them did imply a different feeling, that's for sure. When in the beginning, in the book of Genesis, where a lot of people recall it reading, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, heavens with an S, and that apparently there were so many kingdoms of the heavens that, was just too much for us to understand. But now it's just the heaven. So it's very limiting. It's like life was like a box of chocolates, implying it's not that fun and exciting anymore because you never know what you're going to get. Now we know what we're going to get. So it is implying something that doesn't feel particularly positive to me. But then again, I am not ruling out that there is some type of artificial intelligence gone rogue and messing. Maybe our reality is both organic and partly simulated. Perhaps there are multiple layers in our reality. Maybe there's layers of our reality that are 100% simulated. We're still learning. We don't know all the answers yet.
Joe has a question for you, and he is saying, am I the only one that remembers when Kirk Douglas died? Well, he just turned 100.
No, I've heard that too, and I also thought that Kirk Douglas had died. So no, he's not alone. Kirk Douglas, yeah. And what was that preacher, something Graham? Billy Graham, perhaps?
Billy Graham, yes.
Yeah, apparently he's alive.
I thought he was dead too.
Yeah, no, he's not quite dead yet. And there are things like that where people, like Mandela, hence the name, people thought, yeah, for sure they died. They remember news clips. They have details. Funny, people share the same details of these memories. So, for the people out there who are skeptics, by all means, stay skeptical. But to be a true skeptic, you have to do your research. You have to spend some time gathering some information and looking at it with an open mind, just because you can't learn anything if you're coming from a biased position. So I didn't want it to look so real. But this is the thing, the program stops when you become aware, and then we create this consciousness override. So maybe for a lot of people, they are experiencing a consciousness expansion. In fact, they're evolving, and maybe they're just the pioneers of this particular evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do find there is another fact here, Dave, that I'm trying to figure out, and maybe some of the people asking some questions out there might know a little about this, but the people who are least affected by the Mandela effect are people that are far more secluded and have little to no Wi-Fi and little to no cell phone tower reception. So what are the implications to that? Mm-hmm. That's another area of investigation here.
Mm-hmm. I think Mike has a very interesting question here. He is saying, Laurie, could this Mandela effect be at all associated with what people would consider deja vu?
Yeah, that's a glitch in the matrix, sort of a deja vu. And people who are experiencing Mandela effect are having deja vus, where they just did something, or this feeling keeps occurring a lot more than it used to feel. So perhaps, like I said, perhaps part of our reality is simulated. I'm not saying that we, the human being, is a simulation. I would, though, go as far to say that our consciousness does reside or is projected into a sentient body that is designed to interpret the environment through our senses. That's very, very clear design with sight, sound, touch, smell, and so forth. We're designed that way. So our consciousness, it again comes back to consciousness here, Dave.
Mario has an interesting question. He is saying, the Mandela effect seems more than just a set of memories. He has noticed hard copy books changing entire paragraphs. He has noticed digital changes, deaths, rebirths, deaths again. Does the Mandela effect explain all of these changes in the timeline?
I believe that it does. I have seen the changes in the books, and I'm going to tell you, it was sadly my younger sister passed away in August. And by the end of September, I felt okay enough to take out our family Bible that's been in my possession for generations and record my little sister's death. And so I flipped open to a couple of the things, and know that the words have changed. I can see that the words literally have changed from what I was taught, what I was meant to rehearse and remember as a child. And as a child, I'm just going to say here that I did win an award in Sunday school for all of my ability to memorize biblical verses and in the order of all of the books of the Bible. And they sent me to Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio, which was an amusement park. So I have a little bit of recollection of some of these things. And when I saw that the words in the Bible changed, things that I knew to be one way, and then even in my research as an alien abduction researcher, I had researched in the Bible to see how many times the word alien showed up, or UFO. And it was to my shock and horror to find out that now it's 11 times, in Ezekiel, where it used to say just like 4 faces in a spinning wheel. Now the words are literally a metal ship with flashing lights. And as part of my own research, I used my own family Bible and read that and quoted that in some of my presentations on abduction. And so when I reread that in the same family Bible and the words had changed, I shook my head. All I could do was take out my pen and write. I made note. I noticed that the words changed from this to that on this date in this year. I've done that in several places where I know it to be absolutely true. And I know it's true. I've photocopied certain things, and I know that's the words are changing. Yeah, that's very difficult to wrap your mind around. I pay attention to detail. It's the way I'm wired. And so I remember whether it said on or in, in the Lord's Prayer. And so to see that to change. Now, I know that there have been many translations. I know that King James had Shakespeare help him in about 1600 with the King James book. I'm aware of all of that. And nonetheless, I say to you, the words changed in my book, and they weren't the same as they used to be. And yes, so it was a Mario, I believe, who asked that question. Certainly seen that, and it's shocking when it happens to you. Mm-hmm.
Let's get to a couple more questions from our audience, this one coming from Gail. Could these Mandela effects totally change a person's life overnight, just like the products, movies, and books?
Well, there is a woman who claims that indeed happened, that her life changed overnight, that she was walking down the street, things were the same, but not exactly the same. She worked at the same office building, but in a different department. Her boyfriend that she was in a relationship with, she had broken up 6 months ago. She came home from work and he was in her apartment. They were still in a relationship. She hadn't broken up with him yet. She was absolutely confused. So her life, seemed to change. And there are couples, married men and women, saying, hey, man, my husband's from the other timeline because I recall this about our relationship. This is how we met. And these are just now we just have two separate beliefs in it. And both of them are quite sure. So that's a strange thing when it begins to happen with people. But we see it with a lot of the celebrities and the spelling of their names. Bruce Springsteen, for one, the spelling of his last name also has changed. Barbara Streisand, Steven Seagal, now it's just straight up Seagal. And there's been quite a few of those that are rather amusing. Like I say, I think that this timeline is closer to the movie Idiocracy than the timeline I remember growing up in. And there are some environmental changes that people are pointing out, not just geographical, new animals, as well as new insects. And in fact, just recently, I think, and within the last couple of weeks, there's been a new monkey, a whole new type of monkey discovered. A new type of marsupial has also been discovered, another gigantic type of insect. Windsor, Ontario, where I'm born and raised, now all of a sudden in southern Ontario, there's evidently this 15-foot weed that has the ability to blind you and burn you. I got to tell you, not once was I warned about that, going outside to play or build forts or ride bikes or run free as we did back in the 60s and 70s as children. So there are some very interesting things that it's very hard to understand in British Columbia and in China. Both in China, they have the Rainbow Mountain Range. Just seemed to me that this would have been something that China capitalized on, like they did the Great Wall. And now they say they have the same rainbow mountains of multiple colors, and these mountains are we're in central British Columbia in Canada there. Have you heard of those rainbow mountains in Canada, Dave?
Right near me. Right near me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. I still haven't seen them, but I know they're near me.
Yeah. Okay, well, so some people are saying, like I said, there's some geographical changes that are very difficult. And so if your listeners are out there, go ahead and, if you want, tell me what you think about the shape of Florida and how that looks. So that one was a big one for a lot of people because They just don't recall it that way.
There is so much in regards to this. And people are actually believing that their lives are shifting. Is this a danger point? If we put your counseling and therapist hat on here for a second, is this a danger point that people take this a little bit too literally?
Well, people are definitely affected by it, and they do feel true trauma, and it's scary for them. So they definitely can throw them off. They need to be prepared. They need to be able to be well-grounded, and they need to be able to withstand the shifting of reality. They need to be able to allow their mind to open and comprehend perhaps a larger, more fluid reality. And so there is danger for some people, which is why I believe there's a certain percentage of the population that just adamantly rejects any aspect of this. And that's okay. I mean, if it's too much for them to wrap their head around, if it makes their reality too wobbly and shaky, then don't force yourself. We have a core central belief system, and we can cause mental issues if we disrupt that. We don't want to push anybody too far. But for those people who are experiencing it, I believe that partly they're experiencing it because they can handle it.
I'm very interested in the whole parallel universe theory in regards to this, because if two universes crossed over, and this was proven that the Mandela Effect didn't cause it, but it's the direct result of these crossing over, how do we prove that the parallel universes are actually existing? How do we prove that there's a state of multiverses out there that are interacting with one another?
Well, I believe that quantum physics explains parallel universes. I think that just looking at entanglement theories is enough to, when you look at quantum entanglement, you can't help but realize there's got to be parallel universes. Now, theoretically, if they were to cross over, one should, in fact, absorb the lower or higher frequency and mesh into one. But I think more likely what we're experiencing are just like pinholes, like bleed throughs, crack, a break, just a dribble of overlapping reality. I think that might be more likely, not a full-on convergence of one frequency taking over the next. I mean, so look at your radio signals. It's just a one turn on the dial to the left or the right to tune in fully to one full signal. It's only a frequency away. Yeah, so there are frequencies on either side. So it's just a bleed through, but theoretically, if we're full-on convergence, one should be absorbed into the other. And then as long as the resonance was compatible.
I like this comment by Catherine in the Space Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. She is saying, and I'm going to form it as a question, could it all be just marketing and rebranding? We've seen, and to add to that, we've seen it before. We've seen logos change. That's the obvious. Obviously, that's the first thing any researcher looks at, is remarketing, rebranding, and the evolution of a particular logo. So we certainly look at that first. But when we have the corporations and the companies telling us that they didn't make that change, it never was like this, it's always been that way, then clearly it's not a rebranding. So yes, that's very good thought, but it is the obvious and number one thing we look at in the research area. Mm-hmm. also like Michael's comment in the SOR Space Travelers Club. He says, an interesting thing to do would be to have people get out their birth certificates and check the date and time to see if it's changed. What do you think?
I've heard people say that they've had a number in their social insurance or social security cards change.
Now that seems impossible.
It all seems impossible, Dave. All of these changes are seemingly impossible. Yet, they've happened.
Oh, man. This is enough to kind of push your head all the way out and explode.
Exactly. And I'm going to tell you, it's not really until you have that personal one where you know beyond a shadow of a doubt. Okay, for me, really, I think it's got to be The Wizard of Oz, okay? Because we watched this one. Every single time it came on TV, it was a big deal. Come on, when we were growing up, we didn't have a lot of TV options. There was only 2 or 3 stations. And for me, one of them was in French. And so, when there was something good came on, the whole family would watch the TV show. And the Scarecrow certainly did not have a gun, and the Tin Man did have an axe, but he didn't have an axe and a 30-inch pipe wrench. Now, I'm a good Canadian girl, and a lot of friends work up on pipeline, and I know a big pipe wrench when I see one, and it clearly has like a 30-inch pipe wrench over his shoulder. Now, these things just don't make sense. They don't go with the storyline. So I've got a VHS, the oldest possible version that I can find. And damn if it doesn't have a gun. So, and I've also purchased now the original Oz book by Frank Baum. And let me just check here. It's copyright 1939 here. Yeah, I spent a small fortune too, purchasing things so that I could do the appropriate to check. I want the stuff in my hand. I don't want a picture off the internet, So, yes, when we see these changes happening and there's one that's personal, then and only then is somebody going, okay, all right, something definitely strange is happening. And if I could just tear my eyes away from this TV show for a minute, I might be able to spend some time investigating it. That's what we need people to do. We need them to focus their attention into a different area and start trying to figure it all out. Maybe learning a little bit about themselves, too.
Mm-hmm. I want to get to Char's question, and it's a very simplistic question, but I think it's extremely relevant. She goes, then how or why did this happen to us?
I think it's, in fact, to promote a consciousness expansion. I think that it pushes us past the paradigm of thought that we have, which is very limiting. I mean, we have 18 or 19 senses, and people argue over, do we have 5 or 6? And I'm just like, really? Read something and figure it out. I think it's because we are supposed to learn at this time that we are much bigger and more capable of things than we realize, and that the consciousness imbued inside of us is able to do far more. People have out-of-body experiences, they astral travel, some people clearly are able to communicate telepathically. The human is at a time right now in history where we can push the mind, push the reality, and begin to look at the reality differently. Look at it like we just might have a little bit more control over it than we realize. But we have to be able to begin somewhere, and that somewhere is beginning to understand what we're made of and how we, in fact, operate, how we work in an electric universe, how in fact we send our thoughts and where our consciousness resides, and really what constitutes reality is an individual perspective. And so individually, people are changing. And so I do suspect that this phenomena is only in phase one, and that it too will continue to grow, and people will begin to see larger changes. You know, above the individualized consciousness is more of a cloud conscious, kind of a hive mind above the unconscious and the superconscious mind. And we have the ability to push into those areas with the mind. I'm sure some of the listeners have had very lucid dreams or out-of-body experiences and realize that their consciousness can exist outside of the body. And so when you're outside of the body and fully consciously aware, where do you go? What can you do? What are your limitations? How do you process your thoughts? There are all of these things that happen to people all the time. And so this is just one other area for them to realize that reality is malleable.
This leads into a great question from Gloria in the SOR Space Travelers Club, and she is asking, she is wondering if Facebook and social media are so lax in the spelling of words and the use of wrong words, etc., not to mention the put down of grammar police. Well, I'm going to throw in there like myself, because I'm a red pen. And Eric knows that all too well at hashtag Spaced Out Radio tonight. Could it be that at some point in our future that people will be debating the spelling and use of all grammar?
Well, I don't know. I do see that organization is now spelled with an S or a Z. And
that one drives me nuts, by the way.
Yeah, and apparently both are acceptable, where I believe that Z is my original.
Magazine as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so some of the, like I said, idiocracy, illogical. I don't know if this timeline is the more brilliant one. Because we have a lot of things going on here that can also affect the Mandela effect, such as chemtrails. I mean, there's a possibility that they could be involved in the distribution of some type of nanotechnology or a nanofiber that impairs people's thought process, impairs people's memory, or just keeps them in that confused self-doubt stage. Because once again, Dave, a man who wears 2 watches never really knows for sure what time it is. And when you can keep people confused about stuff, you can completely control them. And they'll self-doubt. People will sadly, people will go, oh, well, I'm probably making a mistake. I'm probably misremembering. I'm like, really? That's too bad that people don't have the opportunity to sort of stand in their power and own what they know or don't know. But regardless of what everybody else is feeling or thinking or experiencing, each individual's perspective is their reality. And therefore, it's real.
Shar has a good question here. She is asking, could this be all part of a mind control program?
It most definitely could be. Beamed energy in the millimeter wave. This is certainly a way to send messages right into the minds of people. But there are lots of things that create short-term memory. And you can find a lot of those things right there on your grocery store shelves because they're in food additives or fluoride. I mean, the other day I was at the grocery store and saw them selling fluoridated water for babies, and, they don't even have teeth. I mean, so what? That's just crazy when most people realize that the main chemical compound in the mood-altering drug Prozac is indeed fluoride. So we have all of these things in our environment that in fact affect our brain. And so our brain here is sort of what's at question, our brain or the functions thereof. And so, yes, because of things like MK Ultra, mind control, electromagnetics, in particularly that voice to skull, psychotronics, radionics. These are all forms of mind control that are done through psyops. I see it in the extraterrestrial abduction phenomena or in the contactee phenomena as well. People hearing messages or receiving downloads into the mind and just assuming that it is a extraterrestrial when there's at least 6 other different things that are possible and with a strong agenda. So it's a difficult thing, but the mind control and there we have to ask ourselves, why would anybody want to use any of these types of beamed energy to control the mind? It's certainly for nefarious reasons.
Let's get to Gail's question then. She is asking, Laurie, are you saying these phenomena are being deliberately caused as a big lesson for us?
Well, I'm not saying that they're, in a way, yes, okay. In a way, I am saying that, just not exactly that way. Deliberately caused as a lesson for us. I'd rather look at it more as an opportunity. You know, for whatever is happening. It's up to us how we react to it. I choose to look at it as a way to learn. And the alternative is to deny that it exists. And therefore, who knows what will change tomorrow.
If we look at this on a scientific level, and let's say it is happening, who is causing this? Is it man? Is it just a natural timeline effect? I know people have tried to relate it to the Mayan calendar of 2012 when it switched, that maybe that was a timeline shift. What do you think, or who do you think has caused this?
If anyone or any organization was responsible, it could only be CERN. They are the ones who deliberately set out to create a black hole. They wanted to simulate exactly what it was like after the Big Bang. They wanted to see if they could create that by accelerating particles and then colliding them. So they could have done that. They absolutely could have created a tear or at least pierced into the next frequency or parallel universe. And everything is frequency. That's it. Everything is frequency. So this universe has its frequency. A parallel universe would have its frequency. And I believe that through that particle collider, they did create a hole or a tear, however you might look at it. I think that they are the only ones right now, them and perhaps the use of extraterrestrial technology, that they would have the ability to do that. Sadly, all of the things that they're working on, all of those things can be used for the betterment of humanity. Each and every one of these psychotronic weapons are actually healing tools. They could use that sound frequency instead of to create changes in the brain. They could use it to balance or recalibrate people's electromagnetic energy, allowing people to be healthier, stronger. There's so many good things that could come from a technology like this. It's just sad that we would have to think that it would be used in the way that it's seemingly being used.
I think Dawn has a great comment here in the chat room. She is saying, what if it's more than 2 timelines merging?
Oh, well, absolutely. There are just so many timelines. It's, there's just no way to say 1 or 2 or 1 or 200 or 1 or 2,000. And Dave, just want to make it clear again to the people listening, I am a researcher. I am researching all aspects and possibilities of the cause for the Mandela Effect. I hate the name, but, everything from mind control, artificial intelligence, to the parallel universe tear, to the hacking of the human consciousness, to the Archon extraterrestrial with their technology and their ability to manipulate the human mind. So, even though we can bring in all of these different theories, the truth is, I'll never know for sure. I don't believe. I would like to be able to find the answer. My gut instinct tells me it has to do with where our consciousness is, especially when we hear some of the biggest names in astrophysics saying, hey, the planet Earth used to be in the Sagittarius arm of the Milky Way, and now we're not. That, to me, that's bigger than any of them. That one right there, that shakes my reality to the core. Because, like I said, I've been a sky watcher. I watched all of those shows. I've read all of those books. I've had a telescope my entire life. So that's just like somebody saying all of a sudden, no, we've always had 2 suns or 3 suns or 2 moons, or, and everybody going, yeah, of course we did. So it's very difficult. Yeah, there could be multiple timelines. Theoretically, there would be just an infinite amount, really, because there would be an infinite amount of available frequency.
Question that I have for you in regards to this is people accepting the timeline and the way it works. Do you see that the people who do accept this will maybe have their own ability to reduce the resistance to the possibility that this is happening? Almost like calling it like a frequent slide from one reality to another until they mesh together?
Yeah. People are saying that they've always had like a sort of a feeling of a parallel universe, or they've always thought, something was up. I myself have had like one of the most unbelievable lucid dreams years ago where I literally ran into myself and saw another me, another reality of me. And I don't know if I astral traveled into a parallel universe or what, but that was beyond real to me and stuck with me for years and years after. So, people believe that there are multiple timelines. A lot of people don't have a problem with it. And science will tell you too. Bottom line, there's always been a natural flux of time. Who knows how many times we drift in and out of frequency, going higher or lower based on our position in the cosmos, based on all sorts of things that can change frequency.
Mm-hmm. We're going to continue on with the audience questions here. We only got about 4 minutes before we got to go to break, and this one's from Mario. He is saying, is it possible that the world had a catastrophic worldly collision at some point, then a second later everything was back to the way it used to be? Could something like that have happened that we didn't even know?
Well, there is that theory. I have heard this before, that CERN, in fact, blew us up in 2012, just like the Mayan calendar anticipated, and that we just absorbed into the closest frequency, which accounts for residual remembering of the alternate timeline.
Now,
and
that's far out there.
Yeah, and we're not quite, I don't think, like a lot of people said, so are we dead? I had a bunch of kids ask me. They're younger people, younger teenagers are all over this Mandela effect. The youth are the ones really being affected by this, far more so than older people. And I had a group of young kids, about 13 and 14 years old, say, so do you think we're dead? Do you think that we really did blow up and they blew up and that we're dead and that this is just sort of an echo? We're just an echo of what we used to be until this sort of wears off. And I'm like, no, I don't really think that. But there's so many theories out there, and I hate to see the young people thinking something like that, because that's just not, this just doesn't seem plausible to me. But yes, I've heard that we thought they blew up the earth and that we just absorbed into the next frequency over because we're that close.
Mm-hmm. We can probably sneak in one more question here, and this comes from Trip in the Space Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. Do you believe, Laurie, that movies that put in Easter eggs so we can watch the movie closer, like Indiana Jones putting Star Wars Easter eggs in it, do you think that that could be something to do with the Mandela effect, that they are putting these little captions in our eyesights?
Possibly. I do think that they're so arrogant sometimes and so in your face that they leave these little Easter eggs, so as you say, to tip us off, to make us follow the clues, to make us think, or to rub our noses in it even.
I'm wondering if they're doing that as well, because if they are, that is brilliant. It's brilliant on their side.
Right. And, the thing is, 2013, the laws here in the United States changed about subliminal messaging and advertising. And so they removed the law there. So there is no law. So who knows what they can do at this point?
Well, they can pretty much do anything that they want if they're in control. But then again, nobody really knows what is truly happening at CERN or the scientists involved. That's almost like a public Area 51, if we want to think about it that way.
I'm telling you, go ahead and check out a YouTube video on the opening of the Goddard Tunnel, Goddard, in Switzerland, and you'll just not believe it.
On that note, we're going to get you to hold on. Laurie McDonald is our guest tonight. True You Hypnotherapy. We're going to get into a little bit more Mandela Effect, and maybe we can squeeze in some aliens, because anytime I can talk a little aliens, that makes me happy. Because you guys all know me. Me and aliens, we love each other. Sometimes. You're listening to Space Out Radio. We'll be right back.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where two members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Have you checked out the SOR Spacewire at spacedoutradio.com yet? Every day we post the latest stories regarding the weird, strange, and completely unbelievable. From cryptid and UFO sightings to the conspiracy world, we tackle it all. Hi there, I'm Eric Markham, Spaced Out Radio's news director for the SOR Spacewire. And if you have a story, I want to hear it. Email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
A child grew up too fast, went running wild. Now we don't know who to pray to anymore.
Welcome back to the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the show, we are stepping back into the cryptid world. J.C. Johnson is going to join us. He is pretty much known as the Indiana Jones of the cryptid world. We're going to talk all things cryptid tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time, right here at spacedoutradio.com. If you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. While there, you can pick up your gardening seeds for just $50 donation. We will send you gardening seeds for the coming spring. Who doesn't need their vegetables? Go get them. We want to thank everyone listening in on the United Public Radio Network, live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us on a nightly basis. And, of course, if you're listening in Sin City, yes, Las Vegas, Nevada, the home of Renegade Talk Radio, we are your nighttime show there as well. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Angostura Strait. Angostura Strait is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, space travelers. And send me a sentence on social media if you can put it in a sentence. That's all I ask. I'd like to know how. Anyhow, let's get to the social media aspect of this show. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio as well if you want to get a question or a comment to me. You boys know who you are in the room. Even Rahonda, the lone female, is tweeting tonight. Spaced Out Radio Cat has now invaded the studio. He snuck in. I don't like when the cat's in here. He just meows a lot. So if you hear him, I don't have time to get up. Just blame the cat. Anyhow, follow us on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. Of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. Laurie McDonald is our guest tonight. We've been talking the Mandela Effect for a couple of hours. We're going to do a little bit more about the Mandela Effect. We're also going to get into some alien talk here in hour number 3. Laurie, welcome back to the show. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
This question, as we get to our audience question here, this one comes from Bill. He is asking, could it be that we are all parts of a simulation running on a master computer someplace, and when we die, our characters are just recycled? This could explain why we have this deja vu feel that we've lived before.
Yes, theoretically, this could be a simulation. That seems to make sense on some levels.
Very interesting indeed. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, because, I mean, there's a lot of people still wondering, as we've moved forward, whether or not this reality is true, whether time is really true, or if everything is just a man-made computer-animated object.
Well, when we see glitches in the Matrix, so to speak, then we do have to look at things like a simulated reality. When we begin to see history as we know it changing, that it indicates a glitch, and that really makes us look at the simulation theory. But I don't think that we're living in a 100% simulated reality. I, in fact, think that it could be a partially simulated reality.
Loretta is asking, at CERN, the science is somewhat compartmentalized. Not all the scientists have the same intentions. Not all are looking for the same results. Back to the need-to-know reality that runs through military projects. Do you see this as being a problem with what is happening there and what they are truly doing if the scientists are not communicating?
Well, I mean, listen, they're all building the same ship. They're just working on different parts and not talking about it. So, you know, that's the way it's always been done. It's done like that for lots of reasons, secrecy, safety, lots of different reasons. But is it the best way to do things? Maybe not, because perhaps ethically, morally, some people might not realize exactly what they're involved in. But if they look at that opening of the Goddard Tunnel for CERN, then they might have a better idea of what they're dealing with.
My question then is about time, because everything seems to revolve around time, and I've really noticed this over the last number of years, and I know a lot of people around me have. But for a lot of people, they seem to think that time is actually moving faster. The years, the days, the months are just whizzing on by. Do you think that this may have something to do with this timeline shift? Because I'll tell you, my daughter, my beautiful girl, just turned 18 a couple of days ago. And, you know, I think it speeds up quicker when you're a parent because, you know, you're worried about work, paying bills, making sure your kids are healthy, everything like that. But it seems to me that everything just seems to be speeding up so much faster. Could this be a result of this timeline shift?
I'm not sure if it's a result of this timeline shift, but this is what I do know. The third dimension as we know it is slipping away. That, in fact, NASA scientists have said that the universe is expanding, that we are moving into the fourth and fifth dimension. The fourth dimension will be short-lived. This will be an opportunity where people have to learn emotional control. They'll have to understand what and who they are and understand the purpose of being. They'll see that words have power, that thoughts have power, and that we actually can manifest our reality with our thoughts. So if we are not in control of our mind and in control of our thoughts, we'll have instant manifestation, which could be very negative. So fourth dimension will be very short, and then we'll move into a fifth dimension, which is divided into lower, middle, and higher, each having a different consciousness, each having a different brilliance, so to speak, all in the evolution of the human soul. So that's what I understand. Now, the third dimension is in the ascension process. Back in the Middle Ages, they referred to it as the dark times. It was, in fact, the dark times because we were as far away from the sun as possible in the cosmos. Now the Earth is ascending, becoming closer to the light. The vibrational frequency will have quickened, and we'll begin to learn things like light is a coaxial circuit. We'll begin to understand that we may actually be a reflection of light, a reflection of the whole. We're going to see that it all has to do with the consciousness, not so much the where and what time it is, but in the just natural evolutionary path of the soul and the cosmos. We're both evolving.
Karen has a question for you in the Space Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. She is asking, Laurie, have you seen any actual data from CERN or seen the control cameras from inside? Where do you get this information from?
They publicize all kinds of information. Just go ahead, Karen, was it? And Google CERN or go into any of it, they're more than happy to boast some of their findings and their intention. It's not secret. Nobody has to go in on a special security camera. And no, I certainly wouldn't have the ability to do such a thing.
Out of all the Mandela effects, what would be some of your favorites?
Favorites, as in, oh boy, I like this one, it's better?
Any of them. I like the one about Saint Teresa. We all believed, at least I did, I thought she was canonized as a saint years ago because she passed away in 1997. I thought in the early 2000s she was canonized, but apparently she was not canonized until September 4th of last year. I never realized that.
Right, yes. I guess some of them like that, really, it would have to be Mandela himself, okay? That started the whole thing. That when we can show really books, school books written by the province or state in Johannesburg, South Africa, regarding the death of Nelson Mandela, and then see him die again in 2013, I'm going to have to say that one in itself is enough for me. That's what started, the whole thing rolling. The Berenstain Bears, of course, is the one that went viral because, people just don't remember the word, it being stain, because it really doesn't seem like that would be something that we could make a mistake with or misremember. So the two big ones, those seem to be pretty relevant, at least for getting people started.
I think so, too. And I'll tell you, there are just so many of these different coincidences that I know we've talked about this in the first hour, but it just seems so unbelievable that any of this could even be possible.
Right, it does, but really, is it that unbelievable? With the technology and this D-Wave quantum computer, and when we start to look at what it's capable of doing, and then we look at, the human brain, and, first off, there's basically no firewall. Everything just sort of seeps right into the subconscious mind. There is a brain-blood barrier, but, we're not really all that protected, and we're very much subjected and manipulated and malleable by such waves. I don't think people understand how much they can affect us. They can alter our moods, change our energy, make us sick, burn our skin, change our thoughts, make us forget things. So we have to understand that we're constantly being bombarded with all types of different waves, and they're certainly affecting people. I think that's one of the main things that people really need to look at is the technology behind what could make this possible. Does it exist? I think it does. And so we have to look at who's in control of it and would they be in a position to misuse it? And I think the answer is generally, yeah, people will misuse it, and only because history shows us that most people who have had any type of power have abused it on some level. It's very sad.
Do you think artificial intelligence, and as we go more AI as a society, has anything to do with changing it?
Well, that's what I was saying right at the beginning of the show, that this Alice, this, artificial intelligence might have hacked the human consciousness. That's a possibility, that the human consciousness can in fact be hacked because it's just sequencing. And I think that an artificial intelligence, especially one with the ability for D-wave quantum computing, certainly could do that. So that's terrifying to me because it really makes us vulnerable as to what we can allow inside of our consciousness. Just like a contactee, Dave, who receives a download, I mean, they can't stop it. It just streams right into their consciousness, as though their consciousness has been hijacked. Although some people find it pleasant and so they're open to it. So it's no longer a hijacking, it's a gift. It's all perspective.
I like this comment by Loretta. She says, I found a news clip of President Bush mentioning Mandela's death before this timeline says it happened. I went back several days later to ID it for a friend, and it was nowhere to be found. It totally disappeared. Have you heard a lot of stories like that?
I absolutely have. Absolutely have, where people have found the evidence and it's changed. And so this is why I say don't look for your stuff on Google. Isn't Google an esoteric word for watchers? Like as in oogling or ogling?
No, Google actually is a mathematical term that they misspelled and became Google, not Google. So it should have been Googol, but somebody misspelled it to Google, which is LE on the end.
But somebody misspelled it? This amazing mathematical wow. Crazy contradiction, right?
Totally. I
believe it's also an esoteric word.
Could be.
Yeah, I think it might be. But I don't know. Was there another question before that, Dave? I might have missed.
No.
Okay.
We're just kind of hanging out.
Well, that's what I was saying. Yeah, don't hit up the Google because people say they'll be typing and it changes what they're trying to put in. Like I remember one woman said she tried to type in sex in the city like 5 different times and it kept coming up, sex and the city. But there's still a perfume on Amazon that says sex in the city that you can buy. And so that's what she was trying to do. So it was really yeah, it's pretty crazy. I say bypass Google and Bing and Yahoo and all of the mainstream search engines and just go into the deep net. Sometimes the information's a little bit more difficult to sort through, but it's well worth it. There's Torch and DuckAgogo are 2 of the search engines that people can use. I do recommend getting the NordVPN so you're for sure not being followed through the computer's ISP number. So just move into that area and you'll see that there's like 500 search engines and you're able to get 10,000 times more of the information. And there seems to be less control of it. It's more random. Like I said, you got to go searching for it. It's kind of fun.
Out of all the movie lines that have been changed, what are some of your favorites that stand out? We talked about the Forrest Gump one, but what are some of the ones that really stand out for you?
Well, really, it's the Field of Dreams. I mean, that one's pretty shocking. Because of the implication, once again, build it and they will come. This was supposed to be a beautiful thing, build it and all of the people will come, the farm will be saved, baseball will be saved, everything will be saved. It was a wonderful movie and having that change to build it and he will come just really minimized it. It diminished the sort of spiritual feeling of it and made it this singular entity, build it and he will come. Well, who is this he? It just didn't seem beautiful anymore. So that one set me off a little bit. The Star Wars one, we've heard it so many times. So I think I'm becoming desensitized to it. But that's a big one, and that when we're talking about the Mandela effect, this is where you have to go and play your DVD And the DVD that you've watched before, the DVD where you heard it say, where Darth Vader said, Luke, I am your father. Not, no, I am your father. So that one's pretty big. I think that one's the one that really can sort of wake up people that something is happening when it's something they possess. Like I believe it was Mario who said that his own book or words in the books. And not until a person really experiences it. Yeah, for me, my personal one was I had had my home here in Sacramento listed with Coldwell Banker, and I'd had not the most positive of experiences with a different real estate company, and so I was being very careful. And Coldwell Banker had a really good reputation. And so I interviewed several, and there was one in particular who had won all these awards. And so I hired her. And then now all of a sudden it's Coldwell Banker, C-O-L-D, cold. And it was always Caldwell to me. And I remember going, oh, yeah, Caldwell Banker, they've got a really good reputation. When we talked about it, so to see that one change. And, people work for these companies. Like I think one of the people said in the chat room, you would think they would notice, right? But I do believe that when this change happens, a lot of people's mind just sort of goes with the flow of the new frequency, the new thought pattern, the new reality. Well, where others, for some reason, do not. Because I'm new at researching this and haven't been able to go to the depths that I would like to, there's still a lot I don't know about it. But I do suspect that there is certainly something happening.
There are so many different examples in movie quotes. I like the one from Apollo 13, from where it was, Houston, we have a problem, to Houston, we've had a problem. A lot of these lines, like if you look in the movies and you look at some of these, they seem so simplistic, like they wouldn't affect anything. Do you believe that they actually do cause an effect?
Yeah, they wake people up to the fact that reality is malleable and that it can be changed, and that history, even if we thought it was engraved in stone, actually is not. So I think that's kind of important. That seems to be pretty relevant. That's what it keeps pushing us. So does it make any big differences? It might not change your life, but if you just go, oh, so it said this instead of that. But the truth is, with the Apollo 13 one, it has changed back. It now says, Tom Hanks in that role now says, Houston, we have a problem. And for a while there, it said, Houston, we had, in past tense, a problem. Which implies the problem's over, too, by the way. So very interesting, that one.
I got one final question before we shift the topic for the remainder of the show, and we're going to talk extraterrestrial contact, because I always like to get in a little ET chat with you. A lot of people believe that it may not have been CERN that has caused this, but going back in time to when the Philadelphia experiment happened, a lot of people believe that it happened around that time when they were playing with time travel. They were playing with invisibility. Do you see it going back that far, or do you see it strictly a CERN problem?
Well, CERN opened in 1955, and I believe the Philadelphia project was 47, 48. So that doesn't mean, I think that, they're definitely holding hands.
A great answer. Let's move on.
Sure.
In 2016, I noticed on this show that in talking to the experts in ET abduction, that it seemed that ET abductions were down for the year. There wasn't as many people or new people coming forward in chatting with professionals or researchers or anybody of the sort about their experiences. Did you notice this as well, or did you notice it being kind of opposite for you?
Well, I do facilitate the Sacramento Alien Abduction and Contactee Support Group, and my numbers are up. My meetings are bigger, and I have more members. But a lot of people are discussing incidents that had happened earlier in their lives. So for the year specifically, 2016, reported abductions are down. Contact is certainly up. But just because abduction is down, it doesn't mean that it stopped. Do believe that the extraterrestrials had the ability to manipulate the theta and the delta brain waves, simulating the sleep state. I think that now they know we're on to them. There were very many people who were able to snap out of that state, become lucid, conscious, and aware, and this posed problems for the extraterrestrials because now we're not so easily controlled. So I think that the abductions may still be going on because people aren't able to remember them. I did have a personal experience in October of 2016 while I was visiting the Isetti Ranch in Washington. And I don't know if abduction is the right word. I would prefer to call it an event, because I do remember being out of my sleeping quarters and in a different place altogether, where that was very familiar from days gone by. So, of course, I'm not the only one that's got their buttons pushed at the Isetti Ranch. It's quite famous for that.
I still got to get down there. I really still have to get down there. I have an open invitation to go down anytime I want, and I just haven't had time. I guess that's the problem when you work 2 full-time jobs. Yeah, but I do have to get down there and see for myself what is happening, because every time I hear people going down there, they are seeing things from gnomes running around the property to aliens walking inside James Gilliland's house to the lights in the sky, a black helicopter, Sasquatch. I mean, there is just a plethora of interesting happenstances on that farm.
Yes, I spoke at the ranch in October of 2016, and it's a Stargate. And I went there open-minded, but skeptical still, even though of all the years and decades of experience, I was still said, okay, a Stargate, didn't exactly know what to expect. And first off, the energy on the ranch is absolutely amazing, and you can tell it's different. And I certainly had an amazing UFO experience. There were multiple UFOs from one end of the mountain to the other, and it was beautiful. It really was. I did also have an event or an experience where I did feel that certainly something happened. But if you have the opportunity, go. We're headed back later this spring when the weather turns good, and going out for the sky watching on the viewing lawn. It's pretty spectacular.
Is it as active as they say it is?
Well, it was when I was there.
Really?
Absolutely, yes. It was while I was there. And so everything that I'd ever heard what came true for me while I was there.
Did any craft land?
I didn't see any craft land or hear about that. Saw them, though. Saw lots of them and felt... I think it's the lion entities that really seem to rule that place.
What do you mean by lion entities?
The lion beings. They're a type of 5th and 7th dimensional extraterrestrial. They're the feline extraterrestrials. they're like lions. Their face is like a lion, but the body is like a humanoid.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't seen those guys before.
Yeah, I think that's what they carved in the Sphinx in Egypt.
You need one of my halls.
Yeah, sorry.
Would you like me to pass one through to you?
Yeah, that would be great.
Oh, I'm sure I can sneak one through here sometime, quick. Sometime.
I'm around the little kids all the time, and they've always got something from the school.
Oh, for sure. How do you keep your kids on everything? Like, how do you keep them in watch? Because as a parent myself, I can tell you this. My oldest daughter is very intuitive. My stepdaughter is very active, especially since we moved up north, with fairies being around. And my little guy, who's 3, is actually starting to see things. So as a parent, how do you deal with children who are having intuitive abilities or connective thoughts with extraterrestrials?
Well, you respect their experience, but if they're speaking with extraterrestrials, then by all means understand the protocol and go through the appropriate questioning so that you can, in fact, determine to the best of your ability that it is extraterrestrial.
Do you work a lot with children in regards to this?
I have worked with children. It's not my preference, but I had about 20 years ago a 7-year-old that was brought to me as an experiencer. She was talking about what sounded like the short grays. She was drawing pictures of UFOs, and now she's in her late 20s, and her experiences have evolved, but it's good to be able to go over a long period of time like that, to do a long case study to really see how the children are affected by it.
Getting to adults, or pardon me, let's stick with children for a second. When children are having ET experiences, are they both of the malevolent and benevolent nature, or does it lean more to one side than the other?
Well, see, it's a very complicated question, believe it or not, because even though a child might not be terrified and they don't think that it's a negative experience, the experience can be manipulative and psychologically damaging to the child when the extraterrestrial takes a child away and tells them that they're their real parents. By creating this sliver of doubt about the family to claim the superior position in the child's life. This is all very manipulative, very damaging to the children, and really makes you suspect. So the child may not have said it was a negative experience, but an adult can see that's not healthy. That's not the way you do it. So we have to be very suspect. And why would an extraterrestrial really want to contact the kids? They're inexperienced and they aren't really capable. And the only reason that they would want to work with children is so that they can begin to program them to a specific way of thought at an early age. Otherwise, it's illogical for extraterrestrial or foreign species to come and create relations or learn information from a 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8-year-old.
With most children who are taken, are they taken because of family lineage, or do we see a lot of children maybe being the first contactees in the family? Because there's always this theory about indigo children and whether or not they're connected and whether or not that's been passed down for generation to generation. What do you think on that?
Well, excuse me, it's all generational, but it's also evolution. The human genome, what we're capable of, the amount of senses that we have compared to the ones that we use. So having intuition or displaying psychic ability on any level isn't unusual. It's quite natural. As the child is doing it, on one hand, I would definitely be encouraging them to do so. When it comes to speaking with extraterrestrials, once again, the child is not in the position, nor do they have the judgment to know whom they're speaking. And because of psychotronics, radionics, and other types of mind control, this could be a way of testing the children to see what frequencies that they can get them to communicate the voice to skull. This is something that really happens, and now we're looking at something more along the lines of my lab. Now, there's other ufologists, Brett Luter. He's written a couple of books on UFOs, and he states about an extraterrestrial race that lives inside of the Earth, who they're highly psychic, very intuitive, and they're constantly projecting together group messages, beaming them at particular people, and always claiming to be ETs, giving the person the impression that they're someplace in outer space, some type of Pleiadian or Andromedan. And so if you're getting true contact from an extraterrestrial or a celestial being, it's becoming convoluted right now because it's confusing unless you understand the protocol. And there is a specific line of questioning. Good news there, Dave. I just finished my book, The Extraterrestrial Interference. I'm going to say it was twice as hard and took twice as long as I thought it would, because the information continuously needed updating in order for it to be accurate. One of my oldest experiencers is celebrating his 91st year. He called me the day before yesterday. They're reviving his will and making sure that I'm in it to have the implants that he is asked to be removed, and that I can film his body post-mortem. I've been filming his body and the implants on it. We touch them and they retract as if they're free thinking. So the phenomena continues to change. The book was very difficult to continue writing when all of these things keep happening and changing. But there is, again, a protocol and a line of questioning that when this starts to happen, that you fire back with, and you want to understand how that works, and there's specific answers that you want to look for. And although it's not 100% sure, it will give you a good indication of with whom you're having telepathic communication.
How many species of different extraterrestrials have people that you have dealt with seen? Is it always the Greys? Is it always something else?
There's just so many. Absolutely an infinite amount of extraterrestrial descriptions. In the 80s, it was all about the Greys and the tall Greys, and the reptilians are still pretty big today. But we're hearing a lot about Pleiadians and Andromedans, or possibly even the return of the Anunnaki, but these taller, more humanoid beings. So there's all types, certainly everything from elephant trunk to insects, praying mantis, ant-like beings, shadow people, interdimensional and extraterrestrial. There's certainly lots of different descriptions. I wish it were as simple as, 2 or 3. But as far as, abduction, then it does get a little easier. It's about 5 to 7 races that would do that. Humans are among them.
So, of the experiences that you have noted over the past year, it always comes down to what people want to hear. Are they benevolent? Are they malevolent? Are they a 50-50 split? What do you think it is?
Again, it's perspective. Like I was saying, what one person's experience, they think is just amazing. They're so excited to have this interaction, whereas another person is just terrified at the fact that some information could be downloaded or streamed into their mind, and there's just nothing they can do to stop it. It's coming in. They think they're crazy. How can this really be extraterrestrial? Why are they telling me this? What can I do about it? I don't have any power to make these changes. So it very much affects people. So we're not really getting a physical description of where these downloads are coming from. You ask them, well, who's sending you this? I don't know. They some type of extraterrestrial. It's very difficult for them to say, though a lot of people indicate it's they're tall, Andromeda looking, or Pleiadian looking, or which would be the Nordic, blonde, tall, blue or green eyed. And so that's beautiful. But there's a other level of experiencers. The star seeds, I guess they call themselves, and they seem to be receiving messages all the time, and very loving, beautiful information, and they're very happy. And there's just millions of these people claiming that it's their star family, and they're giving them information on how to increase their frequency and get a DNA upgrade.
What would a DNA upgrade do?
A DNA upgrade, I don't know, but there lots of them speak about this. The only thing that I can imagine a DNA upgrade would be to fortify the body to handle a higher frequency.
I wonder if it comes in diet pills as well. Because Lord knows I could drop a couple of pounds right about now. My body didn't survive the winter.
Well, then diet pill is not your best choice. What you just want to start your day with a mug of warm water with a couple of tablespoons of organic fermented apple cider vinegar, half a teaspoon of turmeric, and a pinch of cayenne pepper. This is going to really make a big difference in balancing the flora and fauna of the gut, which will allow your body to absorb nutrients and shed the additional weight that doesn't support the system. But it can't do that if it's not in balance. So it's all a sort of alkaline and acid. Begin with the smallest bacteria in the gut, build up from there, and the pounds will just melt away like warm wax over the edge of a burning candle.
That sounds romantic. It sounds romantic.
Or slightly hypnotic.
Exactly. I'll tell you this. When I had my show on April 20th of 2015 with Harvey Kraft, a gentleman talking Buddha of all things, I had an alien appear at the window during the show. Wow. And it was one of the larger-headed grays. And it's funny because I hadn't talked to Harvey since that night after the show. And he contacted me on LinkedIn the other day. And he told me, and I was kind of shocked by this because we ended up booking him for another show on March 1st. But he actually, after that experience, the more he thought about it, although he never called me, it changed his entire direction of studies because now all of a sudden he was curious about extraterrestrials and contact and everything. It's just amazing when you have or you're around a personal experience, how it can change the effects of the environment around you. In this case, Harvey's down in the U.S., I'm up in Canada when this happened, but it was so profound on him because he had never been a part of that type of experience before that it made him totally shift his focus as well. Do you see that happening with a lot of people who are, say, secondary contactees, like in this situation?
Well, my husband is always, he's a secondary contactee, I think. I mean, so it does absolutely push them or propel them into a new direction of understanding. See, anything that challenges your reality, whether it's a firsthand experience or a phenomena that you're just subjected to, when your reality is challenged like that and you're okay with it and you take the push and begin to open yourself, become receptive to the idea that there are these non-human entities that are interacting with us, you begin to think in different terms. Just like the Mandela Effect, it's the same thing. Both of these phenomena are just challenging the reality, pushing the consciousness, and seeing that all things are not exactly as they appear. Now, the taller grays sounds like what you saw at the window. They're always peeking, around a corner or through a window. Well, not always. I mean, certainly you've got your straight up face-to-face contact with them, but some of them, I think, are realizing that the humans are expecting or accepting this experience now as a human experience as much as an extraterrestrial experience, and we're not as easily manipulated, not as easily weirded out by it, and are a little bit more open to it. So I think that perhaps the ETs, some of them, that energy of thought will resonate with them, and you'll see them maybe through a door, maybe through a window, maybe next in a dream, maybe next time, in your backyard. And that's kind of the way it works. When I did the first show on the Mandela Effect, it's a really out there subject. I get that. And I've always had such a good reputation for thorough research. And so I thought, man, this is really going to push it. And I thought, well, the extraterrestrial phenomena pushes it too, right? I think that that's really what we have to be able to take. We have to really allow ourselves to get pushed out there, become a little vulnerable in our beliefs, and then begin to sort of build up and do the research. But as I was having these thoughts, I walked out onto the deck off my office. Runs the width of the house. It's a great place to pace when I have writer's block. But went out there and I was thinking, and I looked up at the sky, and sure enough, this huge UFO power-up, just burst of energy, and I thought, wow, I wonder if that was for me. And the moment I stopped, boom, a second one, I was like, ooh, maybe it was. And in a way, it was just like a bit of just seems like there's so many of them out there just watching, just waiting, just seeing what we can handle, seeing what we can take, seeing how much sovereignty and independence we'll step into, how much personal power we'll accept in our thoughts and what we'll believe. Because still, with the phenomena, with all new phenomena, there's the risk of other people's thoughts and ridicule. And when you don't care about that, then you are really able to experience. But I see that even in the groups that I've run lots of different experiencer groups, that some people are inhibited still in their ability to express their experience, even among other believers, just because it sounds so weird. I mean, hey, an alien was looking in the window at you while you were doing your radio show.
I will never forget that moment.
Of course not.
You know, because I almost fell out of my chair, and it was only about 2-3 seconds. He was literally about 8 feet away from me. Mm-hmm. And he had, I don't know if he was tall, as in about one of the 5 or 6 footers, or if he was standing on the bench that I had by the window, but that head was bulbous. It was one of these like real skull-like heads, you know, where you could see the cheekbones and you could see the jawbones, you know, and his black eyes were massive and the head was massive. And it's amazing what you can capture in your mind in about 2 or 3 seconds. You know, because when I made eye contact with him, here he was standing there 8 feet away, looking at me. I'm looking at him. And I panicked, you know, I kind of jumped back, human reaction. And by the time I kind of shook my head and looked back, he was gone. He was like absolutely gone. And I've talked to other people about this story as well, and they are always like, yeah, the Greys, they're fast. You know, they would win the gold medal at the Olympics for sure.
You know, that sounds like a tall Grey, for sure, especially the way you describe it. There's definitely a distinct difference. The shorter ones, I don't think are organic or sentient. I think they're more bot or android.
Well, I know this. My wife is quite empathic. And so Harvey doesn't know anything is going on at this point because I have my microphone on mute. And I immediately text my wife from the she was in our bedroom sleeping or getting ready for bed. And I was like, come to the studio now, alien at the window. Holy F. You know, so she comes in and she puts her hands up to the window. And my wife normally has ice cold hands. And I like her cold hands because I'm one of those guys who my temperature is always quite warm. And it just feels good. Well, she puts her hands up to the window to kind of feel the window around because she could pick up on the energy. And she goes, my hands are so hot. And I looked at her hands. Her hands were red. And I put my hands on hers, and they were just burning. Just burning. It was an extreme case of close encounter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. See, it's too bad then we didn't have some equipment. No, you must have some ghost busting equipment, maybe. I don't know.
I got nothing. I got nothing. I'm not a researcher, man. I'm just a journalist who has a microphone and a pair of glasses so I could read my screen.
I just watched one too many Scooby-Doos as a kid and have to investigate everything.
We only got about 90 seconds left with you, my friend.
Okay.
And I do have to say this. I know you're not feeling well. Thank you for doing this. You're battling a cold. I'm battling a cold. But the beautiful part about this is, as the show has gone on, your Canadian accent has come out. So you haven't lost that yet after almost 20 years in California.
Yeah, good to know.
You could fit right in by crossing the border. Nobody would ever know.
I'm going to slip right over then.
Absolutely. But tell us a little bit more about you. Tell us about your book, True You Hypnotherapy, how people can get a hold of you if they're a contactee or an experiencer.
You can contact me through trueyouhypnotherapy.com. Yes, the book is just finished. We're very excited about that over here. And what I have coming up from February the 28th through March 5th, I'm doing a women's empowerment retreat in Hawaii. We'll be on Kona in a private estate, beautiful home, a week, all-inclusive, amazing retreat where women will certainly step into their power, unfold, and own their true authentic self. So we're excited about that. And that's at femininegoddessretreats.com. I think we have about 3 spots left and then we're full. So that should be very exciting. I'm really super psyched about going to Hawaii and doing that retreat.
Can I come? Can I broadcast the show from there?
Well, this one is for women only, but I hope to, in the future, do, unisex or couples retreats in Hawaii, or we're thinking, the next one might be Mount Shasta.
Shasta, I would love to do.
Yeah, beautiful place also.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Weird there. Weird. There's some stuff going on. Laurie, you hold on for a moment. I'm going to wrap this thing up. If you're listening in on the Spaced Out Radio side, you hear Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy, rocking us out of the show. Mr. Bumblefoot takes care of all our musical needs around the mighty SOR. We want to thank everyone listening in on all of the networks that cover this show, and all of you in the chat rooms, and all of you on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Tomorrow night on the show, J.C. Johnson will join us. He is considered the Indiana Jones of the cryptid world. We're going to talk everything from Bigfoot, Dogman, Mothman, Frogman, Goatman, and maybe a little bit more. We'll throw in some Chupacabra or something in there as well. What the hell? It's going to be a good show. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. If you want to check out this show and others, go to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. And, of course, make sure you send everybody over to our website to check it out, spacedoutradio.com. Our schedule is up there every week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will be back in exactly 21 hours from now. I hope you are, too. Let's have some fun. And do me a favor. Tell a friend. We're 25,000 plus listeners a night. Let's make it 30 or 40 or 50,000. We need your help. Tell a friend. Share it on social media. Love y'all. Talk to you tomorrow.